Shemai Friendly, and welcome back to my channel. My name's Caitlin Anwin for anyone who's new here, and I decided to do the butterflies because I did some polls on my community tab asking which was your favourite grasslands animal. Between the two polls, the butterflies had the most votes, and I thought the butterflies went really nicely in with this fairy tale kind of zoo that I've started, because I really wanted to make a fairy inspired build for the butterflies. And when I say fairy, I'm thinking more along the lines of the Shadowhunters fairies, which is spelled like this. I've got like one scene in my head from the series. I don't know. When you've read the book, watched the film, and watched the series, they kind of mix a little bit. But I got like this one scene, the Shadowhunters go to visit the Seelie Queen, and the Seelie Queen is sat on this like very natural, like fully nature throne of like branches, and there's butterflies floating around her. So from that like imagery, I kind of wanted to do something inspired by fairy and the Seelie Court. So the tree that I'm creating, I didn't want it necessarily to be like a tree that makes sense. Like it was not grown on earth. I had a look at some of the other broken trees to kind of get something that's gonna resemble a tree eventually, but have it very different. And what I want from this tree is for it to represent the seasons, because as the guests walk through these two exhibits, they're going to be walking through each one of the seasons. And the reason for that is, again, inspired by the Shadowhunters fairy in the Seelie Court, which is kind of like the good fairies, depending on which book you read. The Seelie Court, like the place where these fairies live, changes every time the Shadowhunters go to visit. For spring on the branches, I've actually tipped the foxgloves upside down, and I've got them kind of hanging off the branches, kind of like wisteria, like cherry blossoms, having like the pink flowers draping down off the branches. But of course the foxgloves weren't enough, and I wanted to add more plant life over on these branches to take it from winter to spring. So I grabbed more like purple, pink flowers to add onto the branches. The fairy fans, I think they're called, they were great. I love the fairy fans. Adding them in little clusters on the edges of the branches, like right on the tips. Just really fun trying to make this tree make zero sense, but also kind of still look like a tree. I can't help it, like realistic builds are not my thing. Like I love fantasy, mystical creatures. Like if you look on my bookshelf behind me, there is not one non-fiction book there, so it kind of reflects more onto what I like to build too. It's still going to be a working exhibit. The butterflies will love this area. I've also been thinking a lot about the Shadowhunters, because the next book in that series they'll just call them the chains, because each individual title is chain of something. So you've got chain of gold, chain of iron, and then finally Chain of Thorns, which is out in less than a week. But I'm very excited for Chain of Thorns. Also very terrified. I don't know when you get this feeling with series, like you know it's going to be the final episode ever of this series. So you're excited to see this final and see how it finishes, but you're also like, oh, there's not going to be any more. And I kind of wanted to map out how I was going to be doing these seasons through the exhibit. So for spring, I obviously put down a cherry blossom tree. For summer, I thought I would do like a desert scene. I want it to feel hot. Even if it isn't, I want it to feel quite hot as you're like walking through this area. It feels like it's summer. To search through the plants a little bit easier to find ones that will represent each season, I actually found it easier to go through the biomes, especially for winter and summer. So for the winter plants, I searched for tundra and taiga plants, so they would fit in a wintry area. And then for summer, I did search for the desert biome to get plants that would work in a desert. For the summer side of the tree, I went for desert type plants like palm trees. It starts making even less sense now. Like these flowers draping from the branches, that could kind of work in real life, but having this massive tree trunk with palm tree leaves coming out of it doesn't make sense. Did I want it to make sense though? No. And this was kind of fun, like trying to get the palm trees to fit into the branches to make it kind of look like they were growing out of the branches. I wanted to add in a few extra plants around the trunk as well, just like I did for the spring side. So I'm just adding plants that belong in the desert biome around the tree. Still got like the mushrooms and stuff and the fun texture of the tree, but kind of add in little plants around like the gaps. I didn't want to add in coolers and paint the terrain with snow because I wasn't quite sure how that would work with blueprints. So I've added in snow rocks. I've done this before. I've done a habitat for Arctic fox. I did a glacier habitat for them and I used the snow rocks quite a lot in that one. So I knew this would turn out quite natural. Like it's even got more texture than what you would get with the snow terrain paint. If you put these flat rocks onto a line to surface, you can basically make any map whatever biome you would like. If you want like a desert look to a habitat and you're in like a temperate zoo, the terrain paint looks like it matches a temperate biome. So then you can grab the desert biome rocks, just like I'm doing for summer. Now I've done winter, and the desert biome rocks are very orange, so you can kind of see the difference here. I'm in a temperate zoo, so my sand and soil don't have that orange tone to them. So I'm basically creating a mini biome with just adding flat rocks onto the ground. So if you wanted an Australian section to your zoo and you find that like it doesn't really feel like Australia in your section, just use the desert biome rocks and you've created your own little mini biomes. For autumn, I've added some fallen leaves around the ground, which is quite nice because it blends really nicely from the desert biome rocks into this like autumnal area. I wanted this to feel like the scenery was changing as you walk through the exhibit, kind of like magic, like how the Seelie Court changes every time the shadow hunters go to visit. I wanted this to feel like it was actively changing as the guests walk through it. So there's going to be lots of butterflies and the same types of butterflies in both exhibits, but I wanted it to feel like it was completely changing as you walk through the two. To tie in with the big magic tree in the center, I've added some mushrooms in to the autumnal section. I don't know about you, but like when it's like very rainy, and autumn is very rainy, there's always a lot more mushrooms growing in like your garden, in like forested walks. I find mushrooms that grow a lot more when it rains a lot, so autumn I thought mushrooms. And I also added one of those like twisty branches for one of the enrichment items, and I added a mushroom under another one just to kind of tie it all in together. For spring, I made the mushrooms more pastel, so each individual mushroom was slightly different, connecting the enrichment items from the walkthrough exhibit in with the decorations again. I've had a couple of comments on TikTok about how to start playing Planet Zoo. Like, they've just got a game and they're not quite sure how to start playing. And I'm quite aware that some of my TikToks and my videos are not necessarily geared towards brand new players. I played from the beta release, so I'm not really sure how much help a new player would need. What kinds of things you want to know about. Do you need help with starting up a zoo for the first time? What kinds of buildings you need to add in, how to build a habitat, what you need to add into that habitat. So if you could leave some comments of what types of things you would need help with starting Planet Zoo, or you'd like me to do more of a tutorial about, how to start a zoo for the first time, how to control the camera. Definitely remember not controlling the camera very well when I first started playing the game. Okay. Oh yeah, no.
Did you know
dear me.
that grizzly bears,
How do we get up?
also
Oh
known
no.
as Ursus, are
What did I do?
transportabilis?
I did not know how to use the mouse and how to control the camera. Like a Planet Zoo basic series. It'll kind of run alongside the digital prefabs. Instead of things being quite complicated, which I like to do, make it a little bit more simple. Let's get it down to basics. How to start a zoo, how to build a habitat, that type of thing. Right? What would you like help with? But yep, that is the fairy butterfly walkthrough exhibit complete. It was really fun doing the different seasons and having to try and figure out like how the seasons will progress through the exhibits. Like I started with winter, which is kind of odd because usually you think like the first season is spring. But if you think about the year, January is winter. So we kind of start the year in winter and end in winter, really. But yeah, that's kind of how I wanted it to kind of progress, like through winter into spring and then summer and then autumn. And kind of have this big magical tree in the center to kind of reflect every season. If you look close enough, as I show walking through this exhibit with all of the beautiful butterflies floating around, I'm sure you'll spot some different plant life and different details that I've skipped over a little bit on the speed build, but you'll see a little bit more on the Pretties. And maybe if you want to download it yourself, you'll see it more in detail there too. My Steam workshop is always listed in the description if you want to like download any of my builds. That's another like basics that could possibly be a tutorial if you want it. Something like how to download blueprints and how to place blueprints down in your zoos, because blueprints can kind of be a little bit easier for newer players, but sometimes they can be a little bit like awkward. You don't know how to connect a path to the blueprint, something like that. That's another suggestion. Let me know in the comments what you would like me to help you with. And yep, I'm gonna leave it off there. That was really fun though. I love making magical builds and it fits in really nicely in with this zoo. We've got a castle, a viaduct, and a Disney habitat. Fairies fit in perfectly. Let me know which animal you'd like me to build a habitat for next in the comments, or vote over on my community tab poll. If you enjoyed the video, smash that like button, and if you haven't already and you'd like to, it would mean a lot to me if you could subscribe and hit the bell to be notified whenever I upload a new video. I upload long form videos on Wednesdays, like speed builds and gameplay, and short form tutorials on Saturdays. I also upload on TikTok and Instagram if you'd like to follow me over there as well. All of my social media links are in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day and I will see you next time. Goodbye!